And we're live.
Good evening and welcome to Cavan Monaghan's special budget meeting, which we will be providing the public the opportunity to speak to the budget. However, before I begin this meeting, I'd first like to acknowledge the passing of our councillor, Cathy Moore, and take a moment to reflect on her contributions to our council and our community. As the mayor of the Township of Cavan Monaghan and member of our council, we have all been very fortunate to have had the opportunity to serve together with Councillor Moore over the course of the past 3 years. When we think of Cathy, we think of someone who absolutely loved our community, and furthermore, of a community that loved her. Cathy knew everyone or a family member of someone who knew someone. She contributed to all aspects of life in our community, raising 2 successful children, Ryan and Jennifer, and as owner-operator of Bridget Anastasia's Gifts and Home Decor, and co-owner of Dennis Moore Auto Repair. Cathy was committed to customer service above and beyond. My first recollection of Cathy was as a child when my parents would take their vehicle to be serviced at their garage. She knew everybody and everything that was happening in the community back then as well. Campaigning alongside Cathy during the 2018 municipal election, I was in awe at the quantity of election signs prominently displayed on the lawns across Cavan supporting Cathy. It was a true testament to her lifelong commitment to know her community, to care for her community, and of the residents that live there. When she was elected to office, Cathy made a commitment to always follow up with her constituents and stand up for what she believed in, and that she did. As committed to timely responses as the rest of council is, Cathy was consistently the first to respond. Despite her health challenges, it never slowed Cathy down or took away from her commitment to serve our residents. On contentious topics, and every council has them, with emails, text messages, and phone calls coming in at all hours of the night, she answered every one of them. It certainly wasn't easy for Cathy, given her difficult time and the battles that she was facing, but she's never once let her slow her down. Her commitment and dedication to our community never changed, even when she was not well. When our meetings turned virtual, her husband Bill ensured Cathy always remained connected. Cathy was always well prepared for council meetings and was certainly the best dressed one in the room, complete with her diamond accessories. Yes, she loved her diamonds. When Cathy called into the office to speak with staff, she was always very respectful and was liked and respected by all. Our staff summarized Councillor Moore's public service contribution by saying she was respectful, dedicated, and committed to the community she loved. She was the council representative on the library board and the Kawartha Conservation Authority. When asked to provide insight into her time on the library board, the message was consistent to everything else she did. Cathy was a trooper. She was always the first to respond to an email, always the first to arrive for meetings, even when it was clear that she was not feeling well. Her comments were very well received and considered, and her background as a self-employed businesswoman brought a different perspective to the board. Cathy always had a positive word, grounded in common sense. We always knew what matters were important to Cathy, such as a new fire hall and an ambulance base, and her vision for the redevelopment of Kawartha Downs and the development of Fraserville, among other interests. Councillor Moore's tireless efforts towards those goals was never out front in the headlines where people would notice, but rather behind the scenes in a less conspicuous manner. That's where the real work is done. She worked tirelessly behind the scenes towards the goals and interests that she had set out to accomplish for the betterment of the entire community. Drawing upon her agricultural past, those were the fields that Cathy Moore worked. Nearing the end of this term of council, it will be synonymous with harvest season, for the seeds that Cathy has sowed are just beginning to blossom and will mature before all of us as her legacy to our incredible community. On behalf of council, staff, and the entire community, we send our deepest condolences to her family. Thank you. We will now call to order our special council meeting on this evening, Thursday, January 20th at 6 p.m. I'd ask for approval of the agenda. Moved by Deputy Mayor Graham, seconded by Councillor Huntley. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Mayor McFadden?
Yes.
I don't believe Councillor Belts. Nope. Deputy Mayor Graham?
Yes.
And Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Motion is approved. I'd ask that any members of council declare any continuing interest in the general nature thereof at the now or when the situation arises. Seeing none, there is no closed session or delegations. Madam Clerk, do we wish to do the report first and then open it up?
Your Mayor McFadden, yes.
Very good. Okay, under general business, the report finance 2022-01 second draft budget 2022 budget presentation from Ms. Pope. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor McFadden. Through you to all council, I have Finance Report 2022-01. This was presented today at the 1 o'clock meeting. We've had further discussions. We just stopped our meeting at 5:30, and we did do a number of cuts to the budget. So that has been outlined here above in the first slide before you, totaling $85,000 that we were able to cut. So there was a reduction on Mr. Hack Township incentives from $50,000 to $25,000. We removed $10,000 transfer to reserves for Heritage Conservation District plan. We removed $20,000 for Maple Leaf Park old shelter demolition, and we reduced the transfer to reserves for the replacement of the 2010 John Deere grader from $280,000 to $250,000. Because the report itself was showing a 2.5% with further reductions required of $111,708, or increasing the tax rate. So far with these cuts, we're looking at either further budget reductions of $26,708 to meet the 2.5% residential tax rate increase, or if that were to stay in, we'd have to increase the tax rate, which would be approximately to 2.76 at this time. I'm going to provide a summary overview. The full detailed overview happened at 1 o'clock. We want to provide the maximum time allotment for the public to be able to speak to the meeting. Also, the first and second draft that they've been able to review, that's been posted online. Next slide, please. So therefore, the two recommendations in the original report was either the 2.5% with the $111,000 worth of reductions, or 3.6% as presented. And that obviously has been amended with the cuts so far. As a reminder, an additional $102,000 is increased in revenue every 1% of municipal tax rate increase. This budget and actuals include up to November 30th, 2021. The final will include an updated surplus and expenses up to December 31st. And of course, all projects, including capital, are available for council's consideration and direction. Next slide, please. The main changes in the first to the second draft budget of the $111,000 were due to operating budget increases of about $12,000. Insurance premium we had estimated at 13%, and it came in at 18%. Therefore, we required an additional $7,000 more than in the first draft, plus new infrastructure insurance premiums of $22,000. The library board capital levy request of $36,966 has been added. The township capital budget net increase of $16,768, and infrastructure loan estimates. It is prorated to the last quarter of the year of $16,835. We'll speak to that a little bit later in the report. Next slide, please. Impact property assessments. This is the same as the first draft. They are staying with the final destination in 2020. It's the same CVA value that residents would have seen in 2021 and 2022, unless, of course, they had a new addition or it was a brand new build. The 2022 Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, known as the OMPF, we are still receiving the equivalent of $142 per household, which this year equals $520,200. Next slide, please. The budget summary is provided for council's consideration and review in discussing anything related to the 3.6% increase. Next slide, please. Just showing what the difference is if you had a 1%, 2.5, or 3.6% increase to the municipal tax levy and what it would mean per 100,000. That's often a calculation provided by all municipalities, so you can do the calculation yourself based on your value of your property, and knowing that you cannot purchase a home for 100,000. We do provide and also a summary at $400,000 level as well. So basically, if it was 100,000, 685 would be the increase. If it was a 1% municipal tax levy increase, if it's a 2.5% increase, it would be $17.13 for every 100,000. And if it were a 3.6% increase, it would be $24.31 per 100,000. Next slide, please. The municipal tax rates, of course, we have a number of realty tax classes and qualifiers. This is basically the calculation summary, just showing the generation of 3.6% if needed at $24.31 per 100,000. Next slide, please. Tax levy comparison. As you can see, the increase in CVA year over year declined in 2021. That's because we held at the 2020 values. Again, we're still being held at the 2020 values in 2022. And really, we're only seeing any change to CVA with new builds or additions to homes or properties. In this budget, because we're looking at the 3.6% at the time of posting, we did provide that as a change or comparator for the increase in the tax rate, but officially we are now down to 2.76 as of the evening meeting. Next slide, please. The operating budget has a net increase of 6.7%. The next slide has a consolidated summary for all the different departments. Next slide, please. Showing the 6.7% for the consolidated net departmental changes, and then the other service and levy changes being 4.7%. We always provide the variance in both dollar value and percentage just to make sure that the numbers aren't skewed, and you can see the reasonable test. Next slide, please. Consumer Price Index, 4.1% increase. Our union agreement will be expiring in 2022 and has not yet been negotiated. Our construction price index rose 11.6%, which indexed our development charges. As a note, the development charge study is scheduled to be presented by Watson and Associates in March, not in January as originally forecasted. And we have also posted and updated the user fees and charges bylaw as per the report provided to council in December. Next slide, please. A summary of the changes for all departments was the 4.1% CPI wage grid indexing, 2% to office supplies, postage, and phone, 3% to hydro and gas, an 18% increase across the board for the insurance allocations and the redistribution of the customer service record retention clerk. Next slide, please. The following are the summaries that have been provided again at the 1 o'clock, and just provide an overview of some of the main key components as to why there's an increase or a decrease in each department. So we'll just go through these slides and move on to the next section, please. Go ahead. And again. Okay. Environmental tax rate and the water wastewater have been presented as per the studies that have been approved by council. Now we've moved on to the capital budget. Again, the capital budget has been cut as per the first slide that we just discussed, but however, $7.4 million was originally included in the capital expenditures, but it does include a number of 2021 rollovers. Next slide, please. And you can see in the rollovers of over $1.9 million in future year approvals, the actual capital expenses comes down to $5.2 million with other funding, and the net capital expenditure of $3.7 million. However, of the $3.7 million, we're suggesting a $2.4 million transfer to the asset replacement reserve and $1.2 funded through the municipal tax levy. Next slide, please. Capital requests in 2020, we just completed a thorough review of each department as promotions in the first meeting today. So we'll just move through these. They are presented, and further information can be seen online through live stream. Future capital infrastructure projects, these are the 3 projects that council, as per the motion in July, provided budget construction costs for each project being $4.2 million for the fire station, $1.2 million for the Public Works Operations Center, and $800,000 for the Parks and Public Works building. As per the report from Public Works today, the $800,000 has increased to $872,000, and the information is on the following next slide. In this slide, this is actually looking at the 3 projects in the case if we were to go ahead at the budget maximums. However, I know we're speaking about the Public Works Operations Center. The $1.2 million does not now qualify for growth-related component, and we're looking at opportunities to ensure that there is a growth-related component so that we can have development charges to help offset these costs. As a preliminary estimate, going through the debentures, both township and DCs, we've determined that if all these projects went forward as presented here in these estimates, we potentially could use another $297,000 of our annual repayment limit available. Next slide, please. All of the grant applications that we have, both with ICIP, these grant applications have been approved both in March and August. We do have one more under the green program that's not yet approved, but we are hearing positive reports to date. Next slide, please. This is the green program where we're just awaiting decision making on the intake 2. That's in regards to the rehabilitation of the Main Street water main. Next slide, please. Municipal Modernization Program, we did receive approval back in November for $117,000. That is in place and in this budget as well. Next slide, please. The COVID fiscal impact update, the real main change between first draft and second draft is the operating cost for 2021. It is now increased to $30,095. Therefore, a total of $570,267 in operating costs and pressures due to the COVID pandemic are listed there before you. Next slide, please. The Safe Restart funding received to date is $260,100. In phase one funding of $217,100, it was applied 56% towards direct operating costs and 44% towards the loss of penalty interest and rental revenues. Phase two funding we've received in 2021 is for the additional COVID-related costs that are incurred in 2021, and that's $43,000 available. Next slide, please. Stabilization of the tax rate and asset replacement phases 1 and 2 we completed back in 2013 and 2015, where we removed all OLG dependency from the annual operating and the capital budgets. We then moved on to phase 3, which was the removal of the OLG revenues as a primary source of revenues for the asset replacement reserve, and this has been removed in subsequent years. In this year, we are requesting 94% of the $2.5 million of audited depreciation as a recommendation for transfer into the asset replacement reserve. Next slide, please. The following is the water and wastewater capital requests. This is all based on the user fee study, the water wastewater background study. We ensure that this meets all of the capital forecasts that were presented to council and approved by council. Next slide, please. These are the two recommendations that were provided in the initial report at 1 o'clock today. Of course, we were looking at between a 3.6 or a 2.5%. As per the budget reductions so far, it looks like a 2.76 if no further reductions were to take place. However, council does wish to have further discussions after the public have had opportunity to speak to the budget today. Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you now.
Okay, very good. Okay, so now we will open up the public portion. So I just need a motion from council to open the public budget meeting. We got Deputy Mayor Graham, Councillor Huntley, Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
and Deputy Mayor Graham.
Yes.
Motion is approved. We now initiate our public budget meeting. So I am looking at the attendees. Those wishing to speak, simply raise your hand and we will promote you. All right, we have one promoted hand, Mr. Al Steele. Madam Clerk, if you could let Mr. Steele in.
Here, Mayor McFadden, he should be moving forward here.
Very good. I will remind members of the public, just please ensure that your questions are definitely related to the budget that is before us this evening for discussion.
Let's through Mayor McFadden. Let's see if it says it's promoted him, but I don't see him there. So maybe if you're okay, Mayor McFadden, then maybe I'll try to leave him in as an attendee and allow him to talk and see what happens.
Okay, I see that he's still over in the attendees, yes.
I do too. And through Mayor McFadden, when I select him to promote him, it says he's promoted, but it doesn't actually promote him. So I apologize for that. Oh, now we have two hands up. Okay, let me see. Are you okay if I try to do the alternative one?
Well, I was gonna suggest that you're already ahead of me. Fantastic.
It did work for some reason, so
Okay,
I
that one worked.
apologize, Mr. Steele.
Yes, Mr. Steele, we will get back to you. We weren't able to promote you. So first up, we have Rod that has been promoted. Rod, I can see you on the screen, but you're muted and I can't see your picture. Okay, Rod, you are unmuted, but we do not see you.
There.
I just sent a little question. Perfect.
Oh, there we go.
There we
Fantastic.
go.
Welcome, Rod. Just to get started, your name and your address for the clerk.
Rod Dew, 927 Hutchison Drive.
Welcome, Rod. Floor is yours.
Okay. I wanted to ask about the insurance that went up $7,000. What is the reasoning? You said new infrastructures or anything like that. Is that because of the community center or any upgrades that's been done somewhere?
Very good. Is Ms. Pope or Ms. Page who wants to address the insurance?
I'd be
Ms.
happy to
Pope.
start.
Very good.
So the industry at large, we're talking about that $7,000 being the difference between the 13% that we estimated in first draft to the 18% that we estimated or has been provided to us for the second draft. The new infrastructure is the additional $22,000, and that is in relation to CMCC, additional equipment, cyber insurance, and changes there in order to protect the infrastructure. So those are additional components that we had to add that were enhanced or more than what we've had in the past, whether it be a new infrastructure or enhanced coverage for our infrastructure.
Okay. All right. You want me to ask another question? Or?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. With the fire hall, the public works building, and the parks and recreational building, where will that put the township's debt level?
Ms. Pope?
I can speak to that. If we could go back to the attachment where I have the debt level funding, rather than the slide, we'll go to the attachment. And that's attachment number 7, please.
We're just pulling it up.
Thank you.
I must say there is certainly advantages to the new method of doing the Zoom meetings in that with staff in their offices and all of your screens going, it's certainly easier to pull the information together. So Kimberly, thank you for the quick pull up, and Patty, who's behind the scenes making it happen, thank you.
Absolutely. Patty, if we could just scroll in a little bit closer. I think it's a little bit difficult for myself to see for sure. Thank you very much. So, Mr. Dew, just to speak to your comments, currently our annual repayments through the water, wastewater, and the DCs for the water, wastewater project that's already in place is at $507,000. Our actual ARL is $2,874,803. Now, no one would ever want to go to 100% of our ARL. So right now we're using 18%. Based on what's presented here today, and again, none of these numbers except for the report today for Parks and Public Works that was approved, but all the rest of the numbers are still not necessarily approved yet by council. But in that regard, we would go from 507,000 annual repayments, adding on 297,000 additional, so that we have a potential total annual repayments of 804,300. So that would be about 28% of that $2.8 million. So around a quarter. Please keep in mind, though, that these are all not related to the taxpayer. So anywhere where you see DCs is the revenue coming in through development charges, and then the debts are paid back through development charges. So really, if we wanted to look at just the township portion, where it's actually affecting the taxpayer, you can see there under the Public Works Operations Center, based on the initial estimates, there's 42,700. And the one below it for the Parks and Public Works building, the component there for township is only $24,640 of that $56,000. So relative to the taxpayer, it's actually even lower, but because we are the municipality and we would take out the loan on behalf of the DDCs until the growth came into place to make the payments, therefore we have to include it. So we're well under at the 28%, but that's the preliminary calculations at this time.
Okay.
Maybe just for clarification, if Mr. Hancock could provide some clarification on the Public Works Operations Center in light of the last report that was presented as it relates to DCs, to provide a little clarity on the amount that would actually be levied versus DC recoverable.
Absolutely. If I may speak just quickly,
Okay.
I'll show you here on the sheet just for so that it can help explain what is going to come. So if you look at the fire station, you can see there's a development charge debenture opportunity. We can raise revenues through, because there is a component that's growth related. If you look over to the Public Works Operations Center, you'll see it says not applicable. That's because at the $1.2 million at this time, it's actually not expanding or enlarging the facility, and therefore we don't have a growth component. So we are looking at that through our development charges to determine what we can do so that we can bring in a growth portion. But right now, based on this information at 1.2, we're unable to. However, there's more updated information through the tender report, and I'll just turn over to the Director of Public Works to answer those
Very
questions.
good. Thank you, Ms. Pope. Over to you, Mr. Hancock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just I guess a follow up on the Director of Finance comments. First of all, we did approve the Works building, which is the Millbrook Works building, earlier in a tender report. It was approved at, as noted, $872,000. When we use that square footage unit price to look at the Millbrook or the Cavan yard, we are at one point we were proposing to build a building 8,100 square feet. Our existing building is 4,100 square feet. So if we removed the building and replaced it with a new building, we should have DCs that would be approved to go against the cost of that building of about approximately 49%. So there is a growth component that we're working on our development charges review. Our present conversations with our consultancy in Watson, we have looked at leaving the existing building at the yard and consider building the new building at 8,100 square feet. And the existing building would be used for storage and repairs, et cetera, of equipment, because we still have equipment sitting outside if we go ahead with the new building without keeping the existing. And if we did that, the development charges in initial calculations would be 100% used against that building and would cover the total cost. So if that, and we are looking at a development charge review coming forward on February 7th, if that in fact works out, we would have the building, new building built in Cavan at 8,100 square feet at no cost to the taxpayers. So at this time, we're under review, and these calculations today have allowed an amount that would be taxpayer funded, but subject to our development charge review, we believe we can get most of that covered by development charges.
Thank you, Mr. Hancock. Go ahead, Mr. Dew.
Okay. The present debt the township has is because of my understanding, the water and wastewater plant and the sewer hookage or lines that went up to the new subdivision. Is that being paid, that debt being paid back by the users?
Go ahead, Ms. Pope.
Yes, it is fully funded through water, wastewater, or DCs. If you look just at the center of the screen there, where we have the current debentures, the $8.2 million, you'll see that the first two are strictly through water, wastewater, so that's the user fee rates. And then the last one, it says WWW, then DCs in brackets, so that meaning water and wastewater DCs. So that $327,000 that's being repaid annually is coming through development charges, not from the user. And that adds to that $507,000. So currently, there is no debt that the municipality is charging through the property tax base at this time.
Okay. Okay. You can pass on to somebody else if you want. I still got questions, but.
It's okay. Keep going.
Okay. I noticed when you put out the first budget that there was a 10-year plan for assets replacement. Is that viewable by the public?
Ms. Pope?
Absolutely. We do have that documented. It's an internal living document that's constantly changing. So we do have that. We have circulated that in the second draft with a revised way of looking at it for council as per their request at the first draft. But it can't It's not locked in stone. It's how we look out to the future, depending on what council would approve this year is added, what new information we find out from DCs is added. So it's a living, moving document. The only thing that gets locked in is the current year once the approval comes forward. And then the rest of the numbers are fluid for each year. It's a forecast to allow us to look at what's coming down the road for each department and as a whole.
Excellent. I agree with that 100%. Going south on County Road 28, just on the west side of the highway, there was a piece of land set out there for a park at one time. I just wonder if that park has ever materialized, because it's still fenced off, but there's no sign on. I just wonder what the township's intentions were, or if they got rid of it.
If I can clarify, and how is that relating back to the budget? Just because I know staff's not going to be prepared for that tonight.
Okay. The question is, if they're not going to do anything with it, why not sell it? It's been there for at least 15 years, just sitting there.
Oh, I see a hand up. Mr. Conley.
Thank you very much. With respect to, through you, Chair, to Council, I believe the piece of land, if it's the same one I'm thinking of, is just south of Baylor on the west end side. So almost shaped like a flag. Yes. I believe what happened is we have reports in terms of vacant lands, and that's a report that went forward, identified that plus other lands that we have. So I believe a decision hasn't been brought forward to Council, but we are aware of it. And as you point out, there is an opportunity, could be an opportunity in terms of doing something with that land, but that's just something that hasn't been brought forward. But the township does own it. It was part of, I believe, parkland dedication for the subdivision that went in that southwest quadrant. But I do appreciate you bringing that forward.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to pass off now.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Dew.
I would like to speak before you close, though.
Not a problem. I will keep an eye on the participants and make sure everybody's had ample opportunity to speak. So Ms. Page will put you into the attendees, and then I'm awaiting another hand to go up to bring in to speak as a participant or a panelist, sorry. Oh, we have, okay, we have Mr. Steele, Madam Clerk, and we're going to try this again.
Mayor McFadden, it looks like it worked this time.
Ah, fantastic.
Oh, there he is. Good.
Well done. Okay, Mr. Steele, you are muted and we can't see you as of yet.
I think you can see me now.
Yeah.
We can see you now and we can hear you. Go ahead, Mr. Steele, just to start, your name and your address.
Al Steele, 1622 Tapley. And thank you. And by the way, I know it's been a long day for you guys because I've been sitting on the other side watching not only the county, but also the other budget. If I could ask Kimberly, can she please do a bit of an update? I have missed part of the Mr. Dew's question, and you may have addressed it, but it's to do with ARRs. And wondering what the total amount that's being offset. I know that it's 94% that's being talked about in covering off this year, but what is the total amount that's sitting there at this point?
Okay, we're about 80% funded since 2012 in total. That is a fluctuating number, of course. It's based on the assets that are depreciating that are currently still on the books. So anything that was previously depreciated prior to 2012, the municipality didn't have any funds set aside back then. And if you remember, asset replacement started in 2008 with 2009 requirements. So right now, though, on the reserve, I'll just pull that up. We do have the reserve report attached here, which is attachment number 6. Perhaps we could bring that one up on the screen. Just in summary, we're estimating by the end of 2021 to be at just about $10.5 million, but there are a couple of loans that are coming out from there, and I'll show you that on this spreadsheet once it's populated. Perfect, thank you. If we could just scroll down slightly, about midway. That's great. Thank you very much. Right there. So you can see there 2697 on the left-hand side. It says asset replacement reserve. We do have at this point in time at the end of 2020 that was audited $11.2 million with infrastructure loan for the solar units still remaining of 111,000. The CMCC fundraise or the loan for the $1 million of the fundraising, there's about $181,000 remaining there, and 1.5 million in the loan from the community center from the DCs. Then if we move over, the changes were from the 2021 budget. We have to wait till we clear out the year and receive all the invoices, but this was the forecast of where we would end up. So basically we'd have $12.2 million. And then with the various repayments now being reduced, so about $10.5 million in the asset replacement reserve at the end of 2021 is estimated at this time.
So when you talk about the asset reserve and what you're putting away as a, what is it, a 2.5% per annum?
No, not necessarily. The 2.5% is more our municipal tax rate, but
No.
we've been trying to aim for, sorry, go ahead.
No, you were going to answer my
Okay.
question.
But we've been trying to aim, because as you know, when we had the OLG, there were no funds actually going into the asset replacement reserve, and there actually wasn't a reserve until later on. So we're about 80% funded from the annual depreciation levels, and we're about $10.5 million net as of the end of this year estimated. And then we are recommending in the capital budget this year another 2.5, well, it's a little bit less than that. I'm just opening it up here. $2.4 million to be transferred in to accommodate. And then of course, during the budget, when you look at the capital spreadsheets, you'll see different variations of what's being pulled from the asset replacement reserve. What we try to do is if 80% of a particular year is put in for that asset, then we're obviously withdrawing that. And you'll see a number of placements in the capital report that shows where we're able to pull so that the cost is not 100% borne by the municipal tax rate that year. It's subsidized or offset by the amount that we have sitting in the asset replacement reserve.
So basically you're saying of those that are undepreciated, there's an amount coming. How much, if we reverse that back, is that number that's undepreciated?
That's a hard answer to provide. Our asset management plan is currently under review to add in all of our assets. The legislation to include the 2013 asset replacement value for just the core infrastructure was completed. The reason why it's difficult to assess is because you're looking at the replacement of something today for items that were fully depreciated many, many years ago, and the valuations of those particular items are still not yet determined. That will be coming out in our asset management plan that includes all the departments and all the assets. We're a bit ahead of the game with regards to our reporting and completing those things. But as you know, last year with COVID, the government did provide a delay until July to finish up some of the aspects. So that's a hard number for me to provide to you at this point. When we decided in phase 3 to try to set aside funds, our benchmark was to take a look at what are we currently actively using at the municipality year after year that we can see tangibly. So one of the items that we can see tangibly is the amortization or depreciation of our assets. And so we use that as a guide, but that doesn't mean that that is the minimum value. We obviously know that when we replace an asset, it's not going to be at historical cost, number one. And number two, there's obviously increased cost or features or what have you in the future. So the hope is that we would have funds set aside for what we're actually using, that we can see that we're using, and continue to try to maintain 80 to 90% level there so that we do have funds to draw down on. There is no perfect, the perfect level would be to have replacement costs plus cost indices for inflation, and then have all those funds set aside. But there's no one that can possibly be in that position, especially where municipalities didn't even record assets until late 2008, early 2009.
As you know, I have a good understanding of that background.
I do know that, yes.
So basically, what was added, how much was added of new infrastructure into that calculation?
Therefore, this is taken on the previous audited financial statement. So the new community center at the $17.5 million. It's a little bit less than that, but basically, in a nutshell, that has been added because that was part of the 2020 financial statements. And so that would be the new addition in addition to any fleet that we replaced and changes therein.
So come 2024 with the requirements, there will be a figure that will be brought up to date and dealt with inflation as well?
Yeah, so the asset management plan that's currently in place, it was required for the main core infrastructure, which is water, wastewater, and roads and bridges. But however, our municipality has the database updated to include, with Public Sector Digest and citywide, we include all of our assets, which is our trucks, our buildings, all our different components that we own in assets. They're actually all in there. However, there are other requirements part of the asset management plan, such as risk, life cycle. Those are the items that the pressure is on for the AMP update. So this coming July, it's still referencing core infrastructure, but we're ahead of the game with that information in there, and we continually work towards that. And last year, council approved the hiring of a contract person in the finance department to work with all departments to continue that process and that deployment of our asset plan, and then also certain IT infrastructure changes that we have in place.
Thank you. I'll pass it on to someone else.
Good, thank you, Al. Madam Clerk, I will look at the attendees. And I'm just going to note that Councillor Huntley will be leaving very shortly to attend another meeting, because this marathon day has not quite ended yet for any of us. And so Brian will be leaving very shortly, which may be in the midst of the next speaker. So I just wanted to acknowledge that Councillor Huntley will be leaving. I am awaiting anyone else in the attendee list to raise their hand. Okay, and we have Mr. Dew. Very good, Rod. Welcome back. We've already got your name and your address, so go ahead. Oh,
Mayor McFadden, I have sent Mr. Dew a request to unmute.
Okay, you have.
Through you, Mayor McFadden, maybe Mr. Dew needs, right on the screen, there should be a notice there that says to unmute.
There we go.
Oh,
He's
wonderful.
unmuted.
Thank you.
This technology. What is the status of the unpaid taxes and unpaid water, wastewater bills? And what would be the upcoming action should they not be paid?
Very good, Ms. Pope.
Thank you for that question. I'll take a moment just to go offline here to pull that data up. I did provide a report this past fall to council, which had a reduction in accounts receivables. We're still pursuing through our collection process. The levels did come down comparatively. So I'm going to pull that data so I can give that to you. I just don't have it in front of me because it's not part of the budget report today, but I will pull that as the next question perhaps is being addressed.
Mr. Dew, if I could suggest, if your next question could not deal with Kimberly, then she can work in the background while you get another answer.
Okay, I have one. This is for the fire chief. When the department goes to the MVCs on the highway and that, are they paid an hourly rate for as long as they're there, or is it a flat rate? And when the money comes in, where does it go?
Chief Balfour?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Dew. Excellent question, and thank you for the question. So the invoices are billed for the entire time. That's number one. we follow the MTO rate, and currently, if I'm not mistaken, it's 485 per hour and every half hour thereafter. As well, to fit into this, just to give you the full picture, we also have a fees bylaw that we put into place for the municipality, and we have it. There's sections in there where we can recover, and I'm going to call them consumables, absorb all things that get broken, and we can invoice for that plus 15% administration fee on top for those consumables. Okay. So the invoices are then paid. There's a section in the budget where they estimate a dollar value that goes against the operating, and any surplus over that amount then goes into reserve. I hope that answers your question.
What I was would like to ask is, when you get the check, what does it just go into general funds, or does the fire department get it?
Yeah, it
reserve?
goes to offset the operating budget, a percentage of it. And then once we hit that targeted amount, and you'll have to forgive me, maybe Kimberly can help me with what it is this year. I believe it's, if I'm not mistaken, 80,000.
60,000.
60. Okay, thank you. It moves from year to year depending on our call volume. So 60,000, once we bring in 60,000 worth of revenue into the operating reserve, any additional funds there. So if we bring in 100, for an example, just for an example, we bring in 100, 40 would then go into reserves.
Okay, thank you.
I'm prepared to answer your question, Mr. Dew. So basically the COVID-19 update number 6, which was presented to council in the fall of 2021, did provide that updated information in addition to where we were sitting with our receivables and from the original report that I had brought forward. And overall, they had decreased by 20% in comparison to the year end prior to. We were now, we had 169,000 additional in property tax arrears. However, in water, wastewater had gone down 32%, 38,000, and general arrears had gone down 655,000. So we had noticed a significant change. People, I think at the very beginning, unsure and making payments where they felt necessary, but they were getting caught up and it was looking well. And like I said, we follow the bylaw for the collection policy. And so anyone that is in arrears follows that process, whether it be through property taxes, water, wastewater, or our general arrears accounts.
Okay, so if I am in arrears for my taxes, how many years or till you get to the point where the bailiff knocks on your door?
Sure. So we have 3 different bylaws. One is for property taxes, one is for water, wastewater, one is for accounts receivable. So and they're not all identical. So that's why I'm just specifying. Oh. You're referencing property taxes. So with property taxes, basically you have 1.25% that's charged on the first of every single month that you are in arrears on the arrears balance. You receive updated notices and statements along with your tax bills as well throughout the year. An opportunity to pay. At any time, a customer can negotiate with us and come on a payment program. We try to assist everyone right up to the last day. However, once we hit 2 years, we're looking at bailiff action. We do send the bailiff out. We have a separate contract for that service that they go out and they serve notices. Normally, that does clear up a number of accounts. If accounts cannot be collected through the bailiff, sometimes there can be deceased or a property in dispute or what have you. It can come back to us, we can take a look at whether it's going to go to collections or to tax sale. Normally it goes to tax sale. It's registered on the property, and then we notify and go through that process. That's another year process to do all the legislative requirements. Again, we do hire, and that is a an external company that does that for us. We go through that process, and then if it's unsuccessful in receiving, because they have a year to make payments during that process with all the legislative notice, right up to the very last minute before we actually have the tax sale, they can make the final cancellation payment. And that can be anyone on the property, including a mortgage company as well. So it doesn't have to just be the owner. And then at that point, if it's still not paid, we can go to tax sale. we can place it up for tax sale, and we have had successful tax sales in the past, but as you know, we had one that wasn't successful, and eventually after the third time, the township did vest that property, and it's now our property. So for the tax sale process, usually it's bailiff, and then if returned to us, it goes back to taxation. If you're talking about something like water, wastewater, or general arrears, that's actually not going to go on to the tax roll quite yet. We'll try the collection process first. And so there's a collection company that we send it out to as well. But just depending on the process, if it's property taxes specifically, you're really dealing with bailiff at the 2-year point and registration for tax sale at the 3-year point.
Okay, thank you very much. That's a very good answer.
Thank you.
Yes, thank
By
you,
the way,
Kimberly.
I-
That was actually rather thorough, and it was a good education for all of us. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Dew.
I was just going to say I learned a lot from that, and my taxes are paid up.
You're not
That's why
looking at
you
all your
don't know.
options.
That's all my questions. I would like to comment though when you do the comment part.
Very good. We'll go back out to our participants and see. We have a hand up. Okay, Mr. Dew, we will see you once again, and we have Mr. Steele who wishes to speak. Welcome back, Mr. Steele. Go ahead.
Thank you. And I'm not trying to outdo Ron and be the last one speaking. This will be the last one. So Kimberly, I take it that the granularity that you can go down as you're doing your budget work is to the department level only.
So from the public viewpoint, we post the summarized statements, you're correct, which is at the departmental level. But then if you come into the detailed level on the back end, it's down to the budget line item, whether it be contracted services or wages or hydro or reserve transfers or what have you. So it's specific, again, within that department. But you're right, when you're seeing the summary pages that are posted online, you're seeing it for department, segmented by that particular category, say the CMCC or the Maple Leaf Park or another division within that department.
I'm actually thinking more about a ward level or even a part of a ward level.
So we don't, our services are not split by ward. We have an even tax rate for all municipal ratepayers. All of our services are available to all of our tax ratepayers in our community, and therefore we have one general levy, so it's not by ward.
Is there any thought about doing that?
Not since my tenure here. I'll tell you actually on the reverse effect, back when I started the environmental services, used to have a small $15,000 transfer from the Millbrook ward and the North Monaghan ward into the Cavan ward. And it wasn't actually representative of the actual number of property owners and usage and what have you. So we spent, it was about a 3.5-4 year process to equalize that, make sure the services were offered equally, and then also then to charge the tax rate for the environmental services in the same way that we charge the regular general property tax rate to all the ratepayers. So now we have it equalized. The only reason why we had to wait on that recently was just at the tail end, the County of Peterborough was still charging a different rate, and they then was able to come out with one rate equalized amongst our wards. And once that happened, now we have an equalized rate. So you'll notice when you look back at the taxes that when they're posted, they used to be posted by ward, by the tax rates, and that changed a number of years ago when the county was able to equalize their rate, and now we have a general rate for everyone.
Yes, I do remember that, and I always questioned part of it, but just being an industrial engineer, I look at things a little differently, and looking at cost centers and what it costs to do things, because there are statements sometimes that are made that love to see facts on them versus generalities.
Absolutely. And Mr. Steele, actually, when you speak of cost centers, a good example of that would be the CMCC. That's a cost center here for the municipality on that departmental level under parks and facilities. Same with the Millbrook Arena. We definitely can understand why we would want to have those numbers by those particular areas. And the other one that comes to mind is under environmental services. Even though we have an equalized rate, we are tracking things like the kitchen waste program and then the billing also for the pickup and the transfer station, et cetera, amongst the wards. So we do have a little bit of data amongst the wards. It's just that's not how the entire municipality is set up.
Thank you. And
You're
that's the last one.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Steele. I will look to the participants, attendees, to see if anybody has their hand up. We see a few more have joined the meeting. I do not see any hands at the moment. Okay, Mr. Dew. Welcome back, Mr. Dew. Madam Clerk, his mute button is not on, but we can't hear him.
That's because I
Mayor
had
McFadden, he may have been muted himself.
There we
my
go.
mute button on.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
Okay,
Go ahead.
You may want to answer this. You may not want to answer this.
Now, that sounds like a loaded question.
It was in the paper today. You've probably may have got a letter about it from the Humane Society.
Mhm.
You heard about what they are doing to the townships. Basically, if you didn't give them 50 grand, they're talking of dropping you. So to me, it sounds like blackmail, but you know. So would the township consider looking elsewhere for their services, or are they going to try and negotiate? I know it'll be a real pain if they drop the service. But
Very
again,
good. I'll have Ms. Hurley address the question. Just to be clear, you're not looking to house the dogs and the cats, Mr. Dew?
I got one already, a cat, and he wants to scream.
Very good. Ms. Hurley, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Dew, thank you for the question. Actually, that question has been going on across our Peterborough County with all the CAOs right at this moment. So it's a very good question. Actually, our clerk, Cindy Page, is actually investigating alternative options, and we will be taking a report forward to council. Right now, we're just doing our investigations, sir.
Okay. So it will affect the budget in some sort of way.
It's possibly through you, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Dew. Yes, we will have to report back in a thorough report on what our findings are and what options we have. It's a really difficult situation. I know with our CAOs, we just met on Tuesday afternoon, and everyone that didn't provide any funding is now looking at what their options could be. And some may not even consider any options because there might be nothing for them in their area.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Very good.
Well, that's all the questions I have, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Dew, for your participation. I'm now looking to any of the other attendees. So last call for anybody wishing to speak at the public budget meeting. We have a few individuals as attendees. Okay, Mr. Dew would like back in. Go ahead.
Okay.
Very good. Welcome back.
I just want to say about the budget, I've been along quite a few years with it, and it is quite a thorough issue. I would like to say that the budget this year was really good. The understanding of it has really come a long way. I commend the financial department and the budget people. Whatever the number comes up to be, 3.6 or 2.76, I think we have to do it because, and even the three main construction things, the fire hall, the operations center, the parks and rec, if you don't do it this year and get the numbers, it's going to go up again next year, and it's going to go up the year after that. So you might as well bite the bullet. I know some people are going to say, oh, we can't afford it, but our community is growing and we're going to need more. And you know, the council knows there's a new fire truck that'll have to be bought that may cost $1 million in the near future. I know that everybody saying this and that, but it's there. So our community's getting bigger, it's expanding, more people, you're going to need more services. Taxes have to go up. That's it. I'm just putting it that way for you. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Dew. So one last call to the attendees for any final questions or words. Oh, that was quick. That was a hand. Okay, Mr. Steele.
Got to get the last word.
Very good, Mr. Steele.
Councillor Belch, no, it's not that I want the last word. Rod actually summed it up quite well. With a community of only 10,000 right now, there's a cost of expansion as we move along. There are a lot of aged infrastructure that needs to be replaced, and definitely the chief has one of those areas. And in speaking to people and the volunteer fire department who do a great job, we need to do things, and it takes money to do that. Again, if you look at it, there are only so many residents and you have to foot the bill. I want to really compliment the staff on the number of grants that they've gone out after and brought in. The amount would be significantly higher without that. And definitely a lot of work's gone into the budget. I know it's a difficult one, but also going into the following years, there's going to be a fair amount of requirements to continue on at a rate that may be uncomfortable for a number of people. But that's it, and I hope somebody else actually does have the last word, other than council. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Steele. So back to the list of attendees. We have 4 attendees. If anyone wishes to ask any questions or share the comments before we close the public meeting. Okay, Mr. Dew, for a final word. Welcome back, Mr. Dew. I'm just going to give you a heads up. You both will probably outlast council tonight because some of us started at 9:30 this morning, so you win.
I'm going to be short and to the point. You said you had 4 attendees. I'm damn mad.
That's more than most years.
No, but this is the most important document that comes out of the township each year. Now, if we had a meeting about you taking their gun privileges away, you'd have 300-400 people at the door banging on it. Or the ATVs, you'd have people coming out their yin-yang wanting to talk about it. But this is the most important document that this township puts out every year. 4 people. I think it's a disgrace. I think if you don't get involved with this, they should up your taxes 10%. I mean it. Like,
Is that a
it
motion?
it's disgusting. I'm sorry if people, oh, well, I haven't got the, they'll be the first ones downtown saying, oh, they raised my goddamn taxes.
Well,
You
I think moving forward, our Director of Finance, Ms. Pope, is always looking for revolutionary ideas of how to advertise the budget, and you might be onto something here. Maybe there's an opportunity for you to provide some input of how best to advertise these, and maybe a 50% increase. That might be a good headline.
You know, I tell people I don't have a life. That's why I watch council meetings. But no, this is important stuff.
Yes.
And I just say on closing, I don't believe that Sylvia Sutherland said, when you can't cook cookies, you must know how to make cookies.
No, I can't boil water, Mr. Dew.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Deputy Mayor Graham, I saw the hand, or that was just an acknowledgement that I can't boil water.
I was just waving to Mr. Dew. I appreciate it.
All right. Back to the 4 individuals that are attending, and I do appreciate the 4 that have taken the time to attend. Any final comments? Going once, going twice? No. Okay, very good. Can I get a motion then to close the public meeting? Deputy Mayor Graham, Councillor Belch, Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes,
and Councillor Belch.
Yes.
motion is approved. Okay, without my agenda, Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mayor McFadden, I think the best thing, I think we can turn it to the CAO and your Director of Finance, but perhaps we pick up the operations discussions from here,
Very good.
as long as they agree with that.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Graham, go ahead.
I was just, can I have a 2-minute break? We're gonna have quorum issues and I don't wanna cause that.
Absolutely.
Let everyone get reset and get ready to go.
Very good, perfect.
2 minutes, thanks.
Those melons.
This is my fault.
Okay, we are back and ready to go. As soon as I see the picture of Ms. Page, we're set to roll. There's Ms. Page. Wonderful. And Ms. Pope? Okay, we're going to go into operations, is my understanding.
Yes, the operating budget that's presented that we summarized this morning with the different percentage and variances, all of them are still the same as of today. However, the CAO would like to speak to a couple of parks and facility adjustments that will be required in the operating budget, and then we can go through the items that you'd like to discuss in the operating budget. So I'd like for the CAO to have opportunity to speak first, please.
Okay, very good. And just before you get started, I know this afternoon we were working in the capital budget where we're going through the items in the departments with a motion to keep it in. With all due respect, I'd just like to leave the operations the way they are for right now. In the absence of a member of council and such a tiny council to begin with, I think it would be more appropriate to make that decision as a council as a whole. But we'll proceed through all of the items, and we still have the last opportunity certainly to add or remove. But with that, go ahead, Ms. Hurley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council. Mr. Chris Allison and I just wanted to bring your to attention to the Bruce Johnson operating budget, which is 4722. Patty, I believe it's number 4 on Ms. Pope's attachment 4 on Ms. Pope's report gets into the operating component. It's been Chris Allison has done some research, and we've been informed that we need to do some works at the Bruce Johnson pertaining to UV and water purification system. And those items are going to total, I believe, $9,000. Chris, could you just confirm that? Is it 9,000 additional that we require to do those works?
Yeah, so the UV filtration system is $4,125. And the filtration system, the water purification system is $3,785 before tax.
So Council, we did not have those numbers until yesterday. So that's why we're just bringing that to your attention, that when we bring the final report back to you for operating, the additional cost or additional amounts will be in under building and repair and maintenance under the Bruce Johnson Library to carry out those works. Thank you.
Very good.
Are they drinking dirty water?
I think the system's just failed, if I understand, Mr. Allison.
Yeah, the UV just failed and we just replaced it. And while replacing it, it was realized that the purification system wasn't working either and it needed replaced.
Very good. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Graham, go ahead.
Was that, so the total on those through you, Mayor, was the total is approximately 9,000. Is that right, Chris?
That's right, yeah.
Okay, I heard this 9 and then I heard the 3 and I wasn't sure if we were talking 12 or not. Okay.
9,000 in total, sir. So we do have 1,000 in there right now. So we need to add the 9, and then therefore the ask in the operating budget for 2022 will be 10,000.
Got it.
Thank you.
Very good. Anything else specific to this department or Ms. Pope or Ms. Hurley? Do we move into the next one, or how does Ms. Pope? I think we've already been through this before. I'm looking for more of a high level.
If we can go back to the main slides, Patty, we'll just go to the overview for the operating.
For each department.
That's correct. Yeah. So that starts on, I'll just find the page number for you. So on page 10 of the presentation today, in the actual, in the actual presentation, the PDF, PowerPoint, sorry. And it's on page 10. It has the summary. That's it. Okay, and then if I add the 9,000 into the amounts that have been cut so far, that leaves us with, of the 111,708 that's originally identified in the report, that leaves us $35,708. And if left and no further cuts, that's approximately 0.35%. That would bring our total tax levy of 2.5 plus that 0.35 to a 2.85 if there were no further reductions going forward. So therefore, the summary is before you, council, and we can look at detailed pages where you see fit by department.
Very good. Any specific questions? I know we have all been through this, the full version in the first review. Don't feel compelled to go back to relook at the same stuff unless you've got specific questions about any particular department or item therein or something that may have changed.
Just the solar.
No comment, Deputy Mayor.
I'd ask that we defer those questions until Councillor Huntley is returned for the next meeting.
Went on gov deals.
Oh,
Any other questions on operations before we completely lose it?
Too late.
I don't see any. I'll just give council a heads up. I do want to have a discussion, but I will save the discussion for the next meeting. It won't have it's not my intention to have an impact on the overall tax levy, but I would like to have a discussion relative to creation of a bursary in the name of Councillor Kathy Moore. Again, the plan would be to take the monies from reserve so it doesn't hit the tax levy. But in the absence of Councillor Huntley this evening, I think it'd be only appropriate that we save it. And I apologize, it will be the last budget meeting. But given that it won't hit the tax levy, I just think it's more appropriate to have a discussion at that time. That's all. It's just a heads up. Okay, I don't see any other questions. I think we're questioned out at this point.
If we could
Deputy
go
Mayor
back
Graham?
then, sorry.
I was just going to say, just a reminder to, if we still have any attendees about maybe spread the word about the date of the next budget meeting so that people can attend at least.
Ms. Pope?
If we can go back to the recommendations in the report, it was the final page in the presentation, PowerPoint presentation summarized. So based on the calculations so far of the 111,000, we have removed 85,000, but added 9,000 to the operating for parks and facilities for the Bruce Johnson building. So therefore, in total, that's a net change of $76,000 being reduced. That leaves us with $35,708 within the budget. That's above the 2.5. So if left, that would be a 0.35 of 1% increase, which would equal an overall 2.85. So I will need direction on what percentage I'm bringing forward to the final budget report for approval of council on February 22nd to 2022.
My suggestion to council would be just leave it as is that we have for now, and we'll have further discussions. There's a few items that need to come back for review, and we'll adjust it accordingly. But I think you've done a fantastic job today. We're all aware of what's in, what's out from the discussions, and we'll do further refinements potentially at the next meeting, and then that'll be a wrap. Is council okay with that? Very good. Okay, a motion then to that effect to bring back the rate that we're currently sitting at. Ms. Pope, is that okay? You've got that look of concern.
I would just like clarification, please. Are you asking me to bring forward the 2.5 that was at on the first draft, or are you asking what's there today at the 2.85?
How we've left off here today, bring that back to us.
2.85. Okay,
Yes.
so
that's
if the
council's
motion,
intention, correct? Yes. Go
if the
ahead.
motion then would have to be, because the recommendations don't have the 2.85, if the clerk could amend one of those motions to have the 2.85, it would be motion number 1 instead of 3.6. It would have 2.85.
Very good. Is that good? Deputy Mayor Graham, Councillor Belch, that's Councillor, or
Yeah,
Deputy Mayor Graham, go ahead.
with a question. Yeah, sorry. No, Kimberly, is there, now you got me rethinking budgets past and present. I feel like I'm in a Bill Murray movie. Are you seeking to have a range? Like, is that kind of, you seem to be leading us to that path to have like a threshold to work within. Is that what are you looking for that? Or I'm happy either way. I think we've done some work to get to 2.85, but there's still some gaps to be filled, and that will have a future reduction or increase depending on what happens between now and then. But are you looking for a range specifically, or?
No, I'm not looking for a range. I was looking for either or, 1 or 2, but because we're neither on 3.6 or 2.5 right now, we're at 2.85. So because this is the final draft that comes forward to council, of course, council has every right to make a last minute change or what have you. But usually when we come forward for final, I'm coming forward with a rate that you've approved for me to come forward with. And that's what I'm looking for today.
Got it. Thank you.
Very good. I saw a hand up from Mr. Hancock. Has he got a suggestion on how we're going to run the budget?
No, Mr. Mayor, I'm fine with the deliberation. I think quite rightly so. I just wanted to go back to the issue of the estimated cost of the Cavan Yard. And I'm not sure if that's a separate item. I know we're dealing with capital and operating, but I feel it necessary that we get some direction to look at the numbers on that building, and particularly in view that we're into the development charge review, which is critical to understand what might be covered by the development charges.
Very
Heidi,
good.
if we could go back, sorry.
Just for clarification, so having passed the previous report, are we now talking relative to this budget, the amount that would be being paid as a payment this year, and whether or not that would be, is that the discussion? It's not the whole thing because you've already approved a tender to move forward.
To you, Mr. Mayor, and to council there was an original council direction that indicated that the budget limit for the Cavan Yard would be 1.2 million, and that's what our Director of Finance is working with. I've sort of raised a couple of issues today saying that it's not going to help our development charges, and that if we can get funding for the development charges, we have to look at a number based on the tender results we have from the other building, and I've suggested to you that it's probably 2.8 million plus. So that's the item I'm raising, which is really a separate item, but I'm also going back to the direction council gave to us previously.
Deputy Mayor Graham?
Well, through you, Chair. Wayne, if that's the case, would it not make sense to theoretically bring forward a report and try to walk on a report at the rescheduled meeting on Monday to have this conversation? Because those tendered amounts were the direction of a report and a motion to council. So for us to sort of make any adjustments therein, sort of on the fly in a budget meeting, I'm not sure that's appropriate. And it certainly wouldn't be quantified, you know, other than sort of a rough basis on what our other building is tendered at. But even then, I'd like to see a bit more detail. Is that, maybe I'll look to the CAO to make a suggestion in that regard.
Mr. Mayor,
maybe just a question go ahead.
Just as a suggestion, we are, of course, working with CN Watson on the development charge review, and that's coming forward to the meeting on February 7th. And I just wanted to be allowed the change of the $1.2 million, because that's going to cause us problems with the deliberation, I think, on the development charges. So I'm just looking at what process we follow, and I, will, certainly with Director of Finance or the CAO or whatever, I'm just saying I believe the number is low and we need to look at a higher number, and that will bring, I believe, development charges into the picture till we can possibly fund this new building at Cavan Yard at 100% development charges, and that's where I'd like to take this.
Absolutely, I understand. Mrs. Pope, I see your hands up.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to council. I just wanted to clarify. The February 7th date is actually the date that the background study would be posted for the 60-day period online for the public to view. The discussion would happen at the public meeting in March with council. The reason why the director would like to have this information prior to the 7th is so that we can get it into the calculations, because presently at $1.2 million, it's not eligible at all for DCs, and we're not allowed to put it in for the February 7th background study. So I agree, a report would be fantastic for the next meeting if it were possible with the director, but we definitely need to make sure that we receive this information and have a discussion with council prior to that February 7th release date. And we are trying to, it is a tight timeline, and I can understand why that's happening. If we go forward at the 1.2 right now with no other further permission, we cannot include it in the DCs. We will not have access to that growth related component, and it's going to be posted on the 7th, and it would only delay, like, we have to have it posted for 60 days, and it wouldn't be part of the conversation in March. So you can see why the director is pushing for that conversation sooner than later.
Very good. So back to Mr. Hancock to make this very efficient. What is your recommended motion at this point?
Mr. Mayor, if it requires a walk-on report, I mean,
No,
we're
it
looking
doesn't.
at
No, just what's your motion? What's your
Oh.
suggested motion? I know where you're going with it.
my motion and my request is that the budget be reconsidered for this building at 2.8 million.
Okay, so make that motion. Do I have a mover? I'll move it. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Belch. Okay, Madam. Discussion. I get it. It's not a proper procedure as far as how we normally handle it, but I completely understand the predicament that Mr. Hancock's in. And once it's gone past, then it's too late, and we can't undo it. And this is the upset limit for DC. So I get it. It's not how we normally do things, but I do appreciate the time crunch that they're under. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
and Mayor McFadden.
Yes, motion is approved. Thank you, Councillor, for the consideration of that, and I understand the predicament Mr. Hancock is in order to get everything all done. With that, Ms. Pope, is there anything further for discussion?
I will just make sure that the next draft will include a change there for the Public Works and provide you that additional information for the final draft. And that is the end of what I need at this point in time.
Fantastic. Back to Ms. Page to end our agenda. And my apologies. Thank you, Patty, for running the system behind the scenes and getting onto our agenda. Okay, so Madam Clerk, just to recap, we have we passed the motion as that's required for that report?
Yes, we have, for the consideration of the 2.8 million, you mean?
Very
Yes.
good. Patty, back to the agenda, please.
So I think what we need to do now, Mayor McFadden, is to pass the motion for the amended motion, the 2.85% that Ms. Pope had presented. So Patty, if you just want to click on that tab right
sorry,
there,
I thought-
and then
I
go to
thought we
her
already did that.
recommendation. No, that one we did not.
Okay, all right. You're aware of what the motion is. Mover and a seconder? Deputy Mayor Graham, Councillor Belch, Madam Clerk, recorded vote?
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham.
Yes.
Motion is approved. To the agenda now. Now we're down to the confirming bylaw, if I have it right.
Yes, through your Mayor McFadden, that's correct.
Very good. Confirming bylaw. No, please go back to the agenda. Very good. Confirming bylaw being bylaw number 2022-04, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the special meeting held January 20th, 2022 at 6 p.m. Be read a first, second, third time, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the corporate seal attached thereto. Moved by Councillor Belch, seconded by Deputy Mayor Graham. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
and Deputy Mayor Graham.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Motion to adjourn. We have Deputy Mayor Graham and Councillor Belch. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
and Councillor Belch.
Yes.
Motion is approved. I want to thank everybody. Thank you, council. It's been a long day. There's been a lot of deliberations, a lot of very valuable discussion. To staff, thank you very much. It's we're nearing the finish line of this 2022 budget. So thank you, and everybody have a safe drive home. Good night.